play that for us.
Doing in Times Square. Hey, look at here. I'm not one of these highly educated, easily speaking, kind of intellectual guys. I'm a U.S. Army combat paratrooper. And this is what I want to say. This is the simple message that we should be sending to Iran. When Iran stands up and they chant death to America, all we need to say is, you first. What message are we sending? What message are we sending when we sit down at the table with the #1 state sponsor of terrorism? What message are we sending when we sit down with a country that is holding 4 Americans hostage? No different from the last time we had a weakling in the White House when we had 53 Americans being held hostage. What message do we send when we create this false narrative about either we sign this piece of paper that just the same meant nothing to Adolf Hitler, it means nothing to the Ayatollahs, or the only other alternative is to go to war? Well, let me tell you something. The United States of America is about victors. The United States of America is about champions. The United States of America does not surrender to a bunch of black-robed, crazed clerics that want to see us destroyed. What does it say about us when we sit down and we sign an agreement with a country like Iran so that they can become an economic power, so that in 5 to 8 years, when the UN arms embargo is taken away, they can become a military power, and then in 10 to 15 years, they will become a nuclear power? But yet we stand up and say we're going to cut our United States Army by 40,000. We are the smallest Marine Corps since World War I, the smallest Navy since 1917, the smallest and the oldest Air Force since we created the modern Air Force. What message does President Obama send to these people over in Iran? It's not the message that was sent to Britain 239 years ago at Lexington Green when we fired the shot that was heard around the world. What message does it say to radical Islamic terrorists when we have people that go and kill our unarmed men and women at recruiting stations, at reserve component stations here in the United States of America, and we can't figure out if the kid was depressed, if the kid was on drugs? Well, hell no, he was a dadgum terrorist. That's what he was. Now, I got to tell you something. I got to hurry up and get off this stage because I got to go to a fundraiser and a Broadway show. What type of commander-in-chief do you have when Americans have lost their lives on our soil, and it's more important to come up here and take in a play than go to Chattanooga, Tennessee and lower the flag half-mast over the White House? It's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Alexander the Great had a fantastic quote, and he said, "I would not fear an army of lions if they were led by sheep, but I would fear an army of sheep if they were to be led by a lion." This great nation is a nation of lions that is currently being led by the greatest of sheep that we have ever seen in our 239 years of existence. How dare Barack Obama, how dare John Kerry, how dare Valerie Jarrett, or any of these other charlatans that occupy Washington, D.C., surrender this great constitutional republic to the Republic of Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, it was said in December 1775 by Thomas Paine that these are the times that try men's souls, that the sunshine patriot and the summer soldier will shrink from his duties. But to those who will make a stand, those of you that are here in Times Square, you will deserve the love and admiration of all men and women. ladies and gentlemen, it's not over. You being here sends a message that the United States of America, I don't care who is occupying the White House, we're not surrendering our liberty, our freedom, our way of life. I want President Barack Obama to know one thing. You may say that you have done something that no one else has ever done. You know why no one else has ever done it? Because it's a damn stupid thing that you just did. And if people are upset because of what I'm saying, I really don't care. Because I had a father that stood in World War II. I had an older brother that stood and was wounded at Quai Son. I gave 22 years of my life to make sure that that great beacon of liberty, freedom, and democracy continues to stand. And I have a nephew, I have friends that are still serving on the front lines. And my commitment is to the oath that I took on 31 July 1982 to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. It's not to anybody's historic event. It's not for anyone to have some special exhibit in their presidential library. It's to make sure that the enemies of America and the enemies of Israel are crushed and brought to their knees. God bless you all. God bless America. God bless Israel. Thank you.
Now, I'll tell you what, that's what leadership sounds like, folks.
That's exactly what leadership sounds like. What a difference between Colonel West and the current commander-in-chief.
Now,
that man knows how to lead troops.
That's right. That's right. He posted this on July 22nd on his Facebook page. And this was shortly after the Chattanooga shooting. And I'll tell you, it's why we wanted to play it. We wanted you to hear it, and I mean, it's a 6-minute speech. So it went a little long, but I'm telling you, it's speeches like that. By the way, as far as political speeches go, 6 minutes is pretty doggone short.
Yes, indeed.
But he got up, he said what needed to be said. He spoke up with boldness, and then he stopped. There wasn't anything else that needed to be said.
That's right.
My only question is, why isn't he running for president?
I don't know. I don't know. Of course, we have a few in there already, Steve.
Yeah. I think at last count it was like 300, and I'm kidding.
I believe that's right.
I'm kidding, but it sure seems that way, and I don't think everybody has thrown their hat in the ring yet. I think there will still be some others. We're going to talk about that later on in tonight's show. In fact, so I don't think everybody has said everything about whether they're going to run or not. But we need leaders like Colonel West.
That's right. Who are willing to step out and say exactly what needs to be said. Who are willing to say this is radical Islamic terrorism.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, my wife sent me this clip this last week. She is not as politically involved as I am. And so she sent this to me. She saw it on Facebook and she said, I've never heard of this guy, but I thought you'd like to hear this. This is really good. And I wrote her back and said, well, not only do I know who that is, but boy, I'm sorry you don't. Because Alan West is a former colonel in the military. He's a former U.S. congressman who I think, frankly, was thrown out of office through voter fraud.
I absolutely agree with you.
And because the number of voters in his precinct, in his district, amounted to something like 125% of the total registered voters. And so he ended up, rather than fighting that in a long, protracted legal battle, he ended up stepping aside because he had the good of the country at heart and is not a political animal. And he is truly an amazing guy. And that's why we wanted to share that with you tonight. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, President Obama's latest executive order and the big story, the Republican presidential debates. And later on, we're going to talk about Hillary Clinton's really bad week. Stay with us. You're listening to the DeLoach Approach right here on WNLMradio.com.
How many of you know the 16 words in President Bush's State of the Union address that led us to war? How many know my wife's name? Now, how can you know one and not the other? When did the question move from why are we going to war to who is this man's wife? I asked the first question, but somebody else asked the second, and it worked. Because none of us know the truth. The offense that was committed was not committed against me. It was not committed against my wife. It was committed against you, all of you. So if that makes you angry or feel misrepresented, do something about it. When Benjamin Franklin left Independence Hall just after the second drafting, he was approached by a woman on the street. The woman said, "Mr. Franklin, what manner of government have you bequeathed us?" And Franklin said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it. The responsibility of a country is not in the hands of a privileged few. We are strong and we are free from tyranny as long as each one of us remembers his or her duty as a citizen. Whether it's to report a pothole at the top of your street or lies in a State of the Union address, speak out, ask those questions, demand that truth. Democracy is not a free ride, man, I'm here to tell you. But this is where we live. And if we do our job, this is where our children will live. God bless you.
Now is the time to stand for freedom. Overpasses for America defends our Constitution by using the Constitution to oppose tyranny, corruption, and oppressive government officials. Stand up, speak out, and get involved by joining Overpasses for America and the tens of thousands of freedom-loving Americans who are exercising their constitutional rights by rallying on overpasses in Illinois and across America. Find out how you can defend the Constitution by visiting overpassesforamerica.com. That's overpassesforamerica.com.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're listening tonight. We are just delighted that you are a part of our evening. Want to remind you, you can go to Spreaker.com and search for the DeLoach Approach. You can also go to SoundCloud.com and do the same thing. There are previous shows. Last week's show was absolutely excellent. And so we would encourage you to do that and love for you to do that. You can also follow us on Twitter. That is the @ DeLoach Approach, @DeLoach Approach. We'd be glad for you to follow us. We put stories up there as well as on our Facebook page, The DeLoach Approach. Just search for that on Facebook and it'll take you right to our site. We put stories there that you can follow and certainly put stories that we've covered or that we're not going to be able to put into the show. So make yourself at home. You can also ask us questions in those venues. And so if you would like to do that and be a part of the discussion, our phone line is down tonight. So if you've got a question or a comment, we would encourage you to do just that. Send us a note on Twitter or send us a note on Facebook, and we'll try to address it as quickly as possible. Now, this week's news was dominated largely by the Thursday night debates, both the early and the late version. And by the way, they were both pretty good, in my opinion. There were winners There were winners and losers that people were not expecting. And